Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are doing the weekly thing that I've been trying to make sure I stay consistent with because I really like doing it. The fighters that really need to make a statement on February 4th. UFC Vegas 68, Derrick Lewis versus Sergey Spivak. First one, honestly, it has to be like Dennis Tululian. It has to be Jung Young Park. Those are a couple ones you could put in there. I don't think there's really been enough yet. But like Ji Yoon Kim definitely has to be a name that you talk about. She's 1-4 in her last 5. It's just really bad. Not bad competition, but bad. Mandy Ball's 0-2 in her last 2. Started 7-0, now she's 7-2. I think that's also a name that you have to talk about being on this list. But honestly, the biggest name on this has to be Doo Ho Choi. I mean, the guy started out an absolute killer. I mean, seriously. I believe he was 3-0. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yep. And then lost to Cub Swanson in Fight of the Year back in 2016. Fought Jeremy Stephens. Again, kind of got destroyed in that. I do believe, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure in that fight he did drop Stephens. Or maybe that was Josh Emmett. But Jeremy Stephens beat up Doo Ho Choi. And then Charles Jourdain, he looked really bad in that fight. It was back and forth, per se, but Jourdain getting a better of a lot of the exchanges. So not a great fight. And he was scheduled to fight Danny Chavez. It was canceled in 2021, and now it's 2023. And he hasn't fought in, 3-4 years now? 3.5 years? Something like that. And it'll be a little over 3 years. So, the biggest thing, at least for me, is after the fight with Cub Swanson, going into the fight, he was 14-1. He is now 14-4. And in those 3 losses, he has Fight of the Year, and then he's been finished twice in the second round after that. So, and it was a crazy back and forth. A lot of those fighters getting dropped, Cub getting hurt, Doo Ho Choi getting beat up for a majority of the fight. And your chin doesn't take punishment like that. Your brain realizes, crap, he's tough. We got to shut this off. And he wasn't getting shut out. Like his button wasn't getting shut off or whatever. He wasn't going out cold. But he just seemed like he couldn't take a punch anymore. And that was crazy, seeing as how all the punishment he took with Cub Swanson. And the same thing, I guess, goes with Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson, if he's going to win this, you absolutely have to make a statement. Not back and forth, not surviving, not anything like not winning the first 2 rounds, and then coming back and winning. That's not proving anything. I mean, you're 13-5. You came in the UFC, you were 11-1. He was 11-1. So he's 2-4 in his last 6 fights. Or he was 12-1. I'm sorry. He's 1-4. Obviously, in his last 5 fights. Obviously. Jesus. But these fighters need to prove something. And I'm not talking about, he has a win over Paulo Reyes. Paulo Reyes is 8-6. Paulo Reyes is not good. He wasn't a good fighter. He's now 10-8, but with the loss 4-4 in the UFC. But yeah, he got an awesome win over Dong Young Ma. Fight of the Year possibly that year, back in 2016. Awesome fight, back and forth, really fun. And then split decision. Then James Vick KOs him in the first round. Then he comes back and destroys Matt Frevola. Pretty sure he tested positive in that fight. If I'm not correct, I'm pretty sure he did. Either way. Then he gets destroyed by Damir Hadzovic. Then he gets destroyed by Drew Dober. Damir one was second round. Drew Dober and Kyle Nelson was in the first round. And then he was cut from the UFC. So, that being said, they need to make a statement. I mean, there's no chance. Whoever loses this fight, gone from the UFC. It's just the way it is. I don't care if they go out there and they have Fight of the Year. One of these guys, obviously one of them's going to lose. Even if it's a draw, one of them or both of them are getting cut. If it's a crazy win, Doo Ho Choi's chin's back and he's back to his old form, you possibly have a star. I mean, he's only 31 years old. Doo Ho Choi could come back. Could Kyle Nelson come back? I don't know. Okay, and then next is Blagoy Ivanov. Blagoy Ivanov has got to show something. Came in the UFC. He's 3-3 in the UFC. He was 6-1 in Bellator. I remember watching him back in Bellator. But when he made his UFC debut, 16-1. Okay, so what? He loses a decision to Junior. Okay, no shame on that. Back in that day, that was older Junior, but still not bad Junior. Better than now Junior. Then he beats Ben Rothwell. Be honest, I thought Ben Rothwell won that fight. I'm not really for sure how they scored that. Then he beats Tai Tuivasa. Then he beats Derek Lewis by split decision, either way. Or loses to Derek Lewis, split decision, okay? Then he fights Augusto Sakai back in 2020. Loses that one, again, split decision. Okay. Then comes back and beats Marcos Rodrigo de Lima by decision. And he hasn't done much. It's weird because in the Bellator, he Bellator right here punches a finish, decision, finish. Loses to Alexander Volkov by rear naked choke in the second round. Okay, then he beats Rama in WSOF World Series of Fighting submission. Derek Memmen, Jesus. Finish. Beats Josh Copeland, woman beater, piece of shit. Decision. Sean Jordan finishes him. Wins a decision to get into the UFC. But we haven't really seen anything that he has a ridiculous chin. Derek Lewis punched the shit out of him. Ridiculous chin, yeah. But we haven't seen that next step. Now, granted, he might be around a little while because he's a heavyweight. He's not terribly old. And again, he's a heavyweight. Not many of those fighters. Marcin Tybura, ranked number 10, has got to move himself up. Granted, I did think he beat Alexander Volkov. So if you take that loss away, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-0. So he's 6-1 in his last 7 fights. It's goddamn impressive. It's impressive. He's really, really hitting his stride. Now, came in the UFC at 13-1. Lost the decision to Tim Johnson, which is kind of yikes. But, and then, wins 3 in a row. Loses 2, gets finished pretty badly. Loses to Fabricio by decision. Gets just in the third round, gets KO'd by Derek Lewis. Beats Stefan Struve, and then loses 2 in a row. Shamil, Augusto Sakai finish him. The Augusto Sakai one was really bad because he KO'd him. And then he went on a bit of a streak. Beat Sergey Spivak, Maxine Grisham, Ben Rothwell, Greg Hardy was a finish. The other ones were decisions. Ground and pounds, Walt Harris. Walt Harris isn't good. And then beats Alexander Romanov. And Romanov looked good in the first. Tired out. He's 10-6. By different judges maybe, he's on a 7-fight win streak. Which means you take those away, he was 3-6 at that point, before that. I mean, he's really, really hitting his stride right now, I think. And I like this matchup a lot for Tybura, just because of how Ivanov fights. But again, this isn't the breakdown of that fight. This is saying these fighters have got to show something. They need to improve. They have to make a statement. Devin Clark has got to make a statement. How long can the damn UFC keep a guy like Devin Clark, who wins one? He's 7-7 in the UFC, and he came in the UFC undefeated, 5-0, 6-0, and then got KO'd by Alex Nicholson at the very end of round 1. Gets 2 wins back under his belt. He gets destroyed by Jan Blachowicz. Then beats Mike Slow Rodriguez. Then gets finished by Rakic. Granted, one of the times that Devin Clark started well, hurt Rakic, and then just looked absolutely terrible. Comes back, beats Darko Stachik by decision, and then loses a boring fight to Ryan Spann. Then beats Daquan Townsend beats Alonzo Menifield back when Alonzo Menifield was undefeated. Granted, the now Menifield, I think, is a little bit better just because he understands, his fighting style and all that. But back then, he was just kind of almost like a newbie or whatever. That win has aged pretty well. And then gets triangled by Anthony Smith. Okay, fine. Then loses to Ion Cutelaba. That's not great. And then beats William Knight, gets his first finish in the UFC, and then loses. So what? He's 1-2, lost 1, lost another one, won 1, lost 1. I mean, this guy is not young. He's 32. He'll be 33 in, what is that? April? Yeah. April. Devin Clark has got to make a statement. I mean, he has to. If he loses another one, he's probably out. Because he's number 38 light heavyweight in the world. I'm sorry, but there's other heavyweights in front of you, like Da'an Jung. If Devin Clark goes out there and he dominates Da'an Jung, I would prefer him to get a finish. But if it's just a bully beatdown for 3 rounds, that's a big win, I think, for Devin Clark. Doing that against a lethal striker with Da'an Jung and, goes out there and dominates him, not just runs away or survives or whatever it is and just wins a weird decision, a boring decision. Yeah, he has got to make a statement next Saturday. Last one is Derrick Lewis. He's number 8 heavyweight in the world, in the UFC, I guess, but I don't know why really he is, because he's 37, he'll be 38 February 7th. He's 17-8 in the UFC, but I mean he's 2-3 in his last 5 fights, and he's 0-2 in his last 2. I mean, he's 1-2 in his last 3. And every time he gets to a big fight, like he finishes Curtis Blades masterfully. Then he fights Cyril Gane in hometown, which don't do that. Please, UFC, don't do that. And gets dominated by Cyril Gane. Then comes back and flatlines Chris Daukaus, which now we know his chin is god-awful. Then he fights Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Pavlovich. And yeah, he looked pretty good in the first round or so with Tai Tuivasa, but what the hell was that? Did you just get that tired? I'm so confused with the power that he has. Is it just a cardio thing or a mental thing? If you can't get those guys out of there, you just fold like that? I mean, Derrick Lewis has got to do something. If he goes out here with Sergey Spivak and Sergey Spivak like outpunches him, outlands on him, and then gets him out of there, holy crap. You can't have Derrick Lewis be the knockout king, himself keep getting knocked out, and still keep him in the UFC. You got to get him out of here. Derrick Lewis needs... This is probably, if he loses this, potentially he could retire. I wouldn't be surprised if he loses, he could retire. So, again, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys agree with these fighters that I think really, really need to make a statement. All these things, let me know down in the comment section if you agree, if you disagree, all those things. If you are new here, subscribe to the channel. And as always, peace.